We've never been taught how to maintain the body. We've been taught how to be self-destructive, to where we destroy these bodies in 80 years or less. If we learned how to maintain the body properly, there's no reason why we can't multiply that by 5 with quality.
Hi family, this is a medical disclaimer. This episode is for informational purposes only. We are not recommending that you follow these practices or offering medical advice. The content is not a substitute for professional medical care. As always, please use your intuition and instincts when listening to our episodes and only take what resonates with you.
Hi guys, welcome to Easy A, where we help you get that easy A in life. We have one of the most important guests, and we've been so excited for this guest. He's changed our lives already, and we've only met him once. He is incredible in so many ways. And yeah, me and Allie are just so excited. Oh, by the way, sorry, Allie's here as well. Allie Michelle, everyone.
That might be my favorite intro you've done. Lovely to see all of you.
Welcome, Mick Hall.
Thank you.
Yes.
Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we met you in February, right? February this year. And you impacted our health journey so much, like she said, in just one session. So we're so excited to hear more of your story. And we're really just curious what inspired your journey for naturopathy and biorestorology. Was there a defining moment?
Actually, I was thinking about it yesterday. There was actually 3 that goes all the way back to when I was about 4.5 years of age. My mother was working at the time for about 3 years. And so she thought that I was going over to my aunt and uncle's every day, but I was kind of independent, and I was just touring the desert at the time. And so I would fix myself quality gourmet meals every day of mayonnaise and Wonder Bread. And then for the evening, I would have candy before I'd go to bed. And for 3 years, I was wondering why I had so much pain in my stomach all the time and toothaches all the time. And so I look back at that, and I see that that was a very powerful motivator for wanting to alleviate the pain and suffering in the body. The second one was when my wife was pregnant with our first son. I heard a report that Gerber was allowed so many parts per million of rat manure, which is just a standard program. Every big food company is allowed so many parts per million of some toxic material. But in my brain, it was like rat manure. Wait a second, I can't feed baby rat manure. And so I had a woman, I was dumb as a stump as far as nutrition was concerned at the time. And I had this woman show me, how do you make baby food? And so she showed me how to steam some vegetables and put them in the blender, which back in those days, everybody has blenders and juicers nowadays. Back then, wasn't quite so common. And so when I saw that, I thought, wow, that's magic. That really impressed me. But the third one, and the main one that really threw me into, I started studying after learning how to make baby food. I started studying health and nutrition, and I was studying with a naturopath. And my sister came down with a condition that none of the specialists in the northwest of the United States could figure out. She would be going along through the day, and she would just collapse on the floor, and her heart would stop pumping blood, and it would just quiver. And if there wasn't somebody there to resuscitate her, she'd have went ahead and died. And this carried on for 9 months. And she went to every specialist in the northwest of the United States. None of them could figure it out. And I tried to get her to come down. I said, I think this naturopath that I'm studying with, he seems like a pretty smart guy. Maybe he can figure it out. No, I'm okay. I'm going to the Mayo Brothers, and they'll figure it out for sure. So she spent 2 weeks at Mayo Brothers and came back with absolutely nothing. So out of desperation, she did finally come down and see this naturopath. And he knew iridology. He just looked in her eyes and took about 1 minute to tell her exactly what the problem was, and another 2 minutes to tell her how to solve the problem. So in 2 weeks, she was cleared up completely. And I thought, obviously this guy's got information in his head that I want in mine. And I wanted to understand the body the way it appeared he did. And that was what really made me passionate. And then, as I mentioned to you a second ago, the story about my younger brother, after that experience, I was totally sold, head over heels, and with the passion of wanting to understand why the body breaks down and develops disease. And so I think it was all three of them that gained greater and greater momentum until I saw the naturopath so clearly give information that all the best specialists couldn't even come up with.
And can you go into the story of your brother? Because that was so impactful.
I was living in South Africa. This was about in 1980. And my brother was the Northwest Regional Champion of the United States in the Golden Glove boxing, which, of course, he spends a lot of time teaching little kids, don't go into boxing, whatever you do now. It's a gladiator sport. Don't do it. But he worked at my father's sawmill. And so, of course, as a little kid, he was built like the Hulk. And that gave him a great advantage. But anyway, he was one of the 5 finalists for the 1980 Olympics to determine who was going to represent the United States. And a very fair fighter. And as soon as the bell rang, he dropped his hands and turned, and the other guy hit him as hard as he could and pivoted his cranium very seriously. And a couple of days later, he went into convulsions and had to go into the hospital, and they drilled a hole in his skull to let the fluids out because the spinal fluids couldn't go down the spinal cord because the pivot was so great. And so they relieved that. And somewhere in there, I was living in South Africa at the time, and somewhere in there, his shunt got blocked up, and he had to go back in for another operation. And he remembered going into convulsions and flipping off the table and landing on the floor. And he had what they call a near-death experience. He flat out died. According to his neurosurgeon, he died for longer than what he should have ever recovered from. But anyway, the next thing I knew, my sister wrote me a letter and said that he just came out of a coma, that he'd been in for a long time, and he wasn't expected to live but a few more days. And so the next morning I was on a plane, came over. I didn't know what I could do, but I felt I had to do something. And so anyway, bottom line is we were going to the hospital every evening because they would phone us up and say, this was in intensive care. They'd phone up and say, I think he's going now, because the neurosurgeon said he only had 2 more days to live anyway, because his veins were all collapsing and he was paralyzed from the neck down and had a whole laundry list of problems. But I'll try and brief it so I don't take up all the time on his story. But
we have
anyway,
all the time in the world for you, Mick Hall. We really do.
Anyway, I told my mom, we got to get him out of here. They're only determined that he needs to die so they can clear the bed. So as quickly as we could, we got him out of there, and got him home, and got a chiropractor to come in and start working on his neck. And my mom and I worked on him nutritionally. I did kind of a cheating thing before we left the hospital. As the doctor was explaining to me why he only had 48 hours to live, my mom asked him if I could work with him in the hospital, and he looked over and he saw the nurse trying to feed him melted vanilla ice cream, and so he pictured that that's what I wanted to do, is I wanted to take her place. And she said, yeah, that'd be fine. So he left the room, so I turned to the nurse and I said, I need a GI tube down his throat as quickly as you can. I'll be back in an hour to put things down it. That was what really saved his life.
Wow.
Him giving me permission, thinking that I wanted to do one thing, because a naturopath can't legally work in a hospital, but I didn't do anything. I got the nurse to do it because the doctor gave me permission. So anyway, I got back I didn't know where to go or what to do anyway, but my mom took me around. We went to Safeway, got some calf's liver, went to a health food store, got some papain, because that's about the only enzymes they had at the time, and a bunch of other goodies, and went to my mom's place and put all that into the blender and got a the ugliest juice you could ever imagine. Went back to the hospital and started putting that down the tube. Because the doctor told me, he says, well, first of all, he says, I don't believe it's possible that you could stop him from passing. But he says, if you could, the best you could ever hope for is a live vegetable. And because of all the problems that he had, he says he died for longer than he should have recovered from, and it shows massive brain damage as well as everything else. Anyway, 11 months later, we taught him how to walk and talk again, and
wow,
he turned into a workaholic, and he's still going strong.
Wow.
So anyway, that whole experience solidified my determination to understand how the body really works, why it breaks down developing disease, and what we can really do to make sure that we don't develop disease. Because that'd be the wisest thing, is don't create it in the first place.
Yeah.
Since we're all creators, why create disease when it's unnecessary?
Yeah.
And you've read 40,000 people's blood. Is that correct?
At least.
At least.
At least.
So
Been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
just a little bit. Having seen so many different blood and people, what is one common thing that you think modern medicine is missing? Are there any consistencies?
Disease is made, really to get down simple and gross, disease is all made of poop.
Mm.
That's how simple it is. We have a filtering system with the liver. We have mineral balancing with the kidneys. We have an intestinal tract, a sewage system. And with every single person, the sewage system is not working right. The filters are overwhelmed. We've never been taught how to maintain the body. If we were taught how to maintain the body as we were taught how to maintain our cars, we could do the same thing with our cars. We can multiply the life of a car 5 times by maintaining it compared to an unmaintained car. Same way, we've been taught how to be self-destructive, to where we destroy these bodies in 80 years or less. If we learned how to maintain the body properly, there's no reason why we can't multiply that by 5 with quality. And that's the key to it, with quality.
So let's say someone has a really high functioning liver, they maintain the body really well. You're saying their lifespan can potentially extend? Closer
to the designed lifespan of the body, which is approximately 600 years.
Wow.
Yeah. That's how self-destructive we are.
Oh my goodness.
Now, our belief system is going to hold us back in a huge way. It's going to be very difficult to reprogram the computer here, because life gives us exactly what we expect, and our expectation is what we've seen and experienced, and that is everybody dies before they're 80. But if you reprogram and you live a good, clean life, keep the filters clean, keep the exhaust system working, and there's no reason in the world why a person can't live a high quality to 120, 130 years of age.
Wow.
And how do you keep the filters clean?
Doing gallbladder flushes consistently, not just once or twice, but consistency. I've seen people get excited about doing gallbladder flushes and do them for about 2 or 3 months and then stop for 2 or 3 years. And the body anticipates that you're going to keep doing that. And it starts to reverse a lifetime accumulation of waste that is developed within the tissue, and it just clogs everything up. So they're actually a little bit worse off by that time, because they started real well and then stopped. Consistency and long-term is the secret to it.
How often do you think people should be doing gallbladder flushes?
A good average would be twice a month.
Really? I feel like they're so harsh. As someone who throws up. Yeah.
Well, the stronger the flavoring agent that you put with the oil, the easier it is.
That's right. Mango and mint.
Mango and mint.
Mango and mint. That's the key to gallbladder flushing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make it easy. Pamper yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and like I was explaining a few minutes ago, when you drink the oil drink, don't even wash up. Just turn around and walk away and go watch a fast movie or something.
There you go.
Get your mind off from oil. Don't think oil, whatever you do.
Okay.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about how we met you and who we met you through, because he's a really important person in our lives, and he's also a really important person in your life. So I want to talk about your relationship with Ken and Agravitae and like how that came to be.
All right. Well, About 10 years ago, Ken and his wife would frequent the office that I had in Costa Mesa, so we got to know each other there. And Ken used to tell me about this farm that he bought in Belize. He says it was the largest graviola farm in the world. And I guess he had a bigger vision, because I think it's about double that size now.
Oh my God.
So now it's definitely the biggest graviola farm in the whole world.
Yeah, we saw it with our own eyes. It is incredible.
Yes. But, and the connection between Ken and I now, we hit on a couple very strong points. One is normally when I'm talking with a person, they don't even mention the word maintenance when talking about the body. Ken understands the power of maintenance of the body, which the whole world has got to learn that whole theory of taking care of the body. And that's what we want to do through Agravitae, is help people to understand that you don't have to create disease. Mm-hmm. You understand the body, you understand how to take care of it properly, then it doesn't break down. The other one, of course, is the graviola leaf that Ken has been working on for all these years. Mm-hmm. And when I was down at the farm about a month or so ago, he showed me this one huge field of thousands of trees, and he says, this area, we just fertilize and kind of baby along, because this is where we get the baby leaves for our graviola powder and teas. And of course, he's built a whole tea factory on the farm. Yeah. And so, when you talk about the graviola leaf powder, usually the equipment that is used commonly is metal grinders and high RPM machines, that create heat in it and everything. He's got these great big stones, old-fashioned stones, and he puts the dried leaves in the top very slowly, no heat, nothing. It just grinds it like what you'd do 1,000 years ago. And so the powder retains all the quality. And the way that he's preparing the trees with the fertilizers, and he segregates this whole forest just to grow the special tender young leaves for his teas, for Agravitae's teas, powders, and all the products.
And
so
what are the benefits of that tea and the powder?
Oh, I haven't memorized that laundry list.
You guys just Google graviola and soursop. They're actually the same thing, just different words used for it.
What I love about the graviola leaf powder is it weaves maintenance with treatment. Mm-hmm. It's a tool that could actually be used as treatment, but it is also such a powerful nutrient that it can build the body, build the immune system, and help the body to prevent developing the problems in the first place. Mm. So that's another point where Ken and I, besides connecting with the idea of maintenance, even the main product that he's working on does exactly the same thing. It weaves maintenance and treatment together in a beautiful way.
So it fights 75 of the deadliest diseases. So that's one of the main things I wrote down. Every inch of the plant can be used.
That's from the treatment side.
Yeah, treatment side. Me and Allie actually got to put the leaves in there and see the actual process itself. And it was...
In the grinder?
Yeah, in the grinder. Yeah. We put it in.
Yeah, and then
we just saw Ken taking things and eating it.
Oh, he'd grab leaves and be like, you got to try this leaf.
You got to eat this right
This is the leaf.
This is it. And then he'd come with these airtight bags of just huge bags. Yeah, that was an incredible experience. And we were so lucky to meet you through him. And your guys' story actually, how you met and... his health issues, I think it was about 10 years. It was more than, maybe it was 10 years ago.
Ken's always been healthy. It's just that he had a tweak in his back and he'd come and I'd untweak him.
Exactly. But, since this relationship, it's just been so incredible to see you guys grow off of each other and then build. And then me and Allie came along, and now it's we just want to spread your guys' message into the world, because it truly is something that my mother actually believed deeply, we've been taught deeply. And with that being said, I want to talk about your belief on our healthcare system right now and what dis-ease or disease means to you?
Well, the shortcut to get to where I really believe is that the doctor in the future that's going to replace me and all the other doctors is going to be a grade school teacher. Because the only difference between our self-destructive ways and the future when there will be practically no disease is information. And of course, that's the foundation of what Ken and I are putting together, is that education that will become common knowledge in the future. But right now, it's like strange new information of maintain the body. Well, yeah, that's the world of natural therapeutics is actually in a large way mirroring the medical model, just diagnosing with more natural means and treating with more natural substances, but still the same process. And both, to a great degree, especially the medical model, completely ignores the principle of cause and effect. And, you know, when we have an owie, we want to get rid of the owie now, not next week. And so it's easy for us to accept that, well, do this, take that, and you alleviate the symptom almost immediately. Oh, great! That's what I want. That's what I want. And so it's not as popular and not as exciting to learn about what caused the problem in the first place. But where we're going with the understanding of all the research that I've done in the past is to help people to understand that, look, if you understand how disease is developed from A to Z, and you avoid the creation of the disease, and you create, in fact, the ultimate of everything that I want to help people to understand is to create a quality of health where disease can't even exist. And that is not only possible, but it's becoming more and more of a reality. And that's the real goal, is have enough understanding of how the body works and how our self-destructive habits have a tendency of destroying. You know, there isn't a person that when they're doing something destructive, they don't realize they're destroying, or they do. Everybody realizes that we are self-destructive.
Yeah.
And they realize that, well, maybe collectively all these self-destructive things is the reason why things are breaking down and creating premature aging, unnecessary disease. You know, it's like, look how popular cancer is nowadays.
So popular.
And cancer is an absolute natural result of the steps that person is taking. They wouldn't do those steps if they understood that those steps are what is going to end up being cancer. Nobody purposely creates these problems. Diabetes is totally unnecessary. But you look at all the major diseases, and with an understanding of how we create them and how easy it would be to avoid creating them. And in the future, when children learn at a young age the true principles of health, they're not going to be foolish enough to do what the old folks did, the reason why they're all dead now, died of horrible diseases. You know, speaking of motivation, I think probably the greatest motivation that I can think of for why, if I could transfer this to everyone that is watching and listening, I think this could become a great motivator to inspire people to want to create health instead of letting it slide. The worst suffering I have ever seen in my life was when I was directing one of the cancer clinics in Mexico. I was watching a woman that had come to us far too late with lung cancer. Her pain was so great, we had her to the highest level of pain medications that we could have her on without just shutting her whole body down. Her pain was so great and her lungs so compromised that during the daytime, she would have to find a focal point, and she could just barely breathe. You can imagine it's like being waterboarded constantly. And the pain was so intense, she would have to focus on that point minute by minute just to keep her sanity. Okay? That is a level of pain and suffering that no human should ever have to endure. And it's 100% unnecessary, 100% preventable. It's just information that a person needs.
So I want to talk a little bit about the relationship with fear and health, because I think so much of why people don't do maintenance is they don't want to see what's under the hood. There's this fear. So let's say you're reading someone's blood and you see something in their blood, whether that's cancer or some sort of disease. How do you handle that with grace and compassion in a way that inspires them to take care of it versus shuts them down in fear?
Well, first of all, luckily, most of the people that I do health screens on have not been diagnosed. And if they have been diagnosed, they already know. But if I have to give bad news, I know, first of all, that they are already intuitively aware. So it's not a surprise. So I come from the point of view of the accumulative problem that has never been addressed properly and what the work that they need to do, because that's what I'm interested in anyway, is helping them to understand that, hey, if you do have mutated cells in your body, you could kill all of them, but you have the reason why they mutated still in place. Oh, wow. This is the reason why modern cancer treatments have never really worked, and they never will, is because when you eliminate the end resulting effect with all levels of cause in place, it's only a temporary win. With cause still in place, you're guaranteed that the problem is either going to remain or return. And those that call themselves cancer survivors after 10 years or 15 years or whatever, I've found through my own work, they never had cancer in the first place. They had abnormal cells, and they were diagnosed as cancer.
Wow.
Because if they truly had cancer, and you removed that cancer, and you had all the reasons why the cancer developed in the first place, the cancer is guaranteed to return.
So when you speak about reasons, where do you think that begins? Is it with an emotion?
In childhood, talk about emotion. Where do kids hold their emotions of fear? Abdominally. And what does that create physically? Constipation. Recycling of the waste material of the body, which overwhelms the liver, stagnates the lymph, and on and on and on. And so, yes, emotions are the foundation. The body is literally the crystallized form of our emotions. Okay?
Wow.
And the science behind that is through hair analysis. You take a look at the hair analysis and what they call the engine of the body, the calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. Those are all emotionally established. It's not what you ate or didn't eat. That's your emotions. And here's the kicker. Those mineral levels and ratios determine the function of every gland and organ in your body. Wow. So the link between our emotions and the function of every gland and organ in the body is the minerals. Now, through hair analysis, generally, years ago, I was trained in hair analysis interpretation, and I would do send hair analysis into the lab and everything, but I got to realizing the solutions were manipulating the minerals. But I realized, okay, now, if these are caused by our emotions, we need to change the emotions. And if these are caused by sugar abuse, we got to drop the sugar. And if these are caused by the lack of certain foods that have selenium and phosphorus and the minerals that we need, well, we need to eat the foods that will provide those. Okay? And so that's when I discontinued doing hair analysis, which for an evaluation, it's very valuable, but it isn't necessary. If a person is dealing with their emotions, kick the sugar bowl out and eating more seeds and nuts and things that have those minerals that we generally don't have in our diet.
And you were just reading our friend Jordan's blood, and it was fascinating to hear how you were saying with the liver, which usually holds anger, resentment, correct?
Right.
That can also be passed down generationally, and it might not even be hers. Can you go into that a little bit about inherited disease?
That is what I refer to as true genetic predisposition. It's not that a parent or grandparent had cancer that you're susceptible to it, even though there are genetic distortions. But speaking of genetic distortions even, I don't want anybody to be thinking that if you have a distortion in the gene that, oh my gosh, you're destined to have this issue. The whole science of
Epigenetics,
thank you, is a way to where if our parents or grandparents create a distortion through their self-destructive ways, then we provide self-supportive and we correct the gene distortion. So our bodies, no matter what is going on, we're creators and we're creating what we're experiencing. None of us is a victim. And yes, every one of us carry in the DNA of every cell in the body, we carry the memory of all the extreme traumatic experiences of our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. At least 3 generations. 4 if the fourth was violent enough. And so when you think about how there is an emotion at the base of every condition, and you have a traumatic memory that affects a particular area, like you bring up the hate, anger, and resentment that could be carried down in the liver. Financial issues held in the lower back, which is very common. And, emotions that create inflexibility. You read the emotion and where it settles in the body, and then you think, okay, now, if it's, all fear causes contractiveness. Fear in every form is the foundation of all of our problems. A shortcut out of that one is you master fear, you've mastered life. That's how core fear is. And that's our course, really, is to keep working at mastering fear and overcome that.
That's so funny because you think that we would be mastering love, but you're right. It is kind of the opposite to get to love.
Yes, actually, good way of looking at that is it's kind of a dirty trick. God hid heaven on the other side of hell. And you got to go through hell to get to heaven.
You got to get through a few colonics and then all of a sudden. But if we're looking at the system as a whole for how we can maintain it, there's the physical component of gallbladder flushes and things like that. And then there's the traumatic epigenetic component. What would you recommend for clearing that?
Well, the genetic distortions are mostly created by either the traumas or the self-destructive lifestyles. So as we're correcting our lifestyle habits and our habits of correcting the emotions, which, one thing, you'd think acceptance is not a very high level of consciousness, right? But acceptance is way up there. In fact, if I remember Dr. David Hawkins' scale of consciousness, I think acceptance is up there by love.
Wow.
And when you think about what that means, it means you, no matter how rude another person is, or no matter how they act toward you, if you allow them to be at that level of awareness, it takes a lot of self-discipline to not judge and condemn. It's easier to judge and condemn or make them wrong and say, you should straighten that up. Well, if they knew better, they would do better. And so acceptance is knowing that we're all at different levels of emotional maturity, and they just have a little bit more hell to go through to help them mature, because unfortunately, hell is the only thing that matures us.
Yeah, it's so true.
We don't develop and evolve and grow in a hammock.
That's why we're on Earth.
No, it's so true.
Do you think that's because acceptance, you're not contracting, and so you're almost able to metabolize life more versus that fear contraction?
That, and too, you're not judging, because, it's like the old saying, if we're judging the other, we're judging ourselves 3 times more. Because that's the real trap of judgment, is we judge ourselves at least 3 to 10 times worse than we judge somebody else. And so it's an attitude of, do we love or judge? And unfortunately, we can't love anyone else more than we can love ourselves. We got to start with self. And that means we need to get rid of the inner critic. We need to stop judging ourselves, stop judging the world, and it'll be easier to stop judging ourselves. And all of that goes to help clear the self. That's a form of self-destructive lifestyle.
Wow.
And so as we evolve out of that, then it becomes easier to love ourselves, love others. And it's kind of like, if you really, really, let's say you had a brand new car that you just really loved, or like a guy with his motorcycle. He just really loves that motorcycle. He's out there polishing on it all the time. Well, you compare that to his body. Okay, does he do that to his body or just to his motorcycle? He obviously loves his motorcycle 10 times more than he loves himself. Okay, so what we really need to do is take an example like that and bring it home and realize that we can't be there to the world any more than we are there to ourselves.
This brings me to a memory when you read Allie's Blood for the first time. And I want to specifically talk about intuition because it was so beautiful to watch Allie have already known so many things about herself, but never having any proof. And watching you validate all of her experiences with her body. I saw one little cinematic tear come down her cheek.
It was more than one. That's very kind of you.
Well, it looked like it. It was very beautiful. And you were talking about intuition and how we always have this deep knowing. How does that contribute to our health, and how do we strengthen that with our bodies?
That is probably the most important work for all of us. In a nutshell, that is everything. Because as you remember, Allie, you already knew all those things intuitively, but you were missing a few words.
Yeah.
And I gave you the words to understand what you knew. Okay? And that's the way it is with everything. In fact, Harvey Cohen, probably 20, 30, 40 years ago, I don't remember when it was, he gave a seminar, and a statement that he made in that seminar was so powerful. He says, we always know whatever we need to know whenever we need to know it. And he says, I'll give you the proof of that. He says, let's say you have a problem and you share the problem with a friend and you ask them their advice. They tell you something, you listen, and you think, nah, that's not it. Then you go to the next person, the next person, the next person. Finally, you talk to somebody that you tell them the problem, and they tell you something, and you think, that's it. That's exactly it. He says, if you didn't already know, how did you recognize it when you heard it?
Wow. That's so
and we
true.
have all experienced that.
Yeah.
And so what we need to do with your question there is, that is so important, because every problem that we ever experience is to the degree that we are not listening or not obeying. Intuition is everything. If we know better, we're not going to fall into a hole when we see the hole and we know better. And that's the way it is with every experience in life. If we know better, we're not going to do the things that are going to cause personal harm. We are always guided brilliantly of every pitfall before us. Do we listen? Do we obey? That here's the big problem. Intuition is a communication through a language that we have never learned. It's called telepathy. And all the animals and plants and everybody around us, they know that.
Yeah.
And all the advanced beings beyond us, they all know telepathy. And we're here in the middle, and we haven't learned that language yet, but we're learning. 30 years ago, the only time when you ever heard of intuition or anything like that, it was like something that women have, right? I guess you couldn't remember 40 years ago, could you?
It's true. That's true.
But anyway,
Yeah.
all of your lives, it's been a common word.
Yeah.
But back when, about 40 years ago for me, it was hardly ever talked about.
Wow.
Now even on television, even the cops have these gut feelings.
Yeah.
It's all intuition. It's, in fact, I'll tell you, I was in Kingston, Jamaica this one time, and it was so much filth and poverty around, and I look down this dirt road, and there's this one of these little stubby school buses bouncing on this rocky, bouncy road, and it flew by. And in the back window was such brilliance, it just stunned me. It says, "He who feels knows."
Wow.
Oh.
That is intuition.
So let's talk about what you said about kind of this, the feminine has always been this intuitive and like nurturing energy, whereas like the masculine, we haven't felt that it does, but we haven't supported that within it. And you were saying earlier, since we never supported men with their emotional capacity, they kind of had an ignorance, and that actually does affect the health in some way. So
Well,
can
it
you
wasn't
broaden on
that women did not support men in that way. It's that men were unaware.
Mm-hmm.
Women were just more aware of their intuitive abilities much easier, earlier. 40 years ago, women were fully aware. 100 years ago, women were fully aware of intuitive guidance.
Mm.
In fact, many very, very intuitive psychic women got drowned by ignorant men and called witches.
Oh, yeah. I remember that, no doubt.
Yeah.
But I do somewhere in my crystallized
DNA.
emotional body,
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
But, I'm glad that we've overcome that level of
Yeah.
male ignorance,
Yeah.
and to the point to where we recognize it, we now rely on it.
Mm.
And I honor it because I believe that's the greatest secret to life is creating that communication.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk a little more about the process of reading someone's blood because, you place it under a microscope, and then what's the first thing that you look for?
Well, the first one that I look at is the live blood, and I look at the roundness, the fullness of the red blood cell, which generally will show me the quality of health. I look at the pattern of the blood, with the pattern that we saw a little while ago. Of course, they were all overlapped, which I recognized as being a strong liver stress pattern. And I look for the cleanliness because the background is supposed to be black and clear, but most people have kind of a London fog drifting through, and it just shows general toxicity and the recycling of waste from the colon.
Mm.
So I look for, in the live blood, I'm mostly looking for strength and quality, function, and cleanliness.
Mm-hmm.
Then in the second one, I'm looking for the levels of free radical damage, which is very important. The first one, I see the amount of lymphatic stagnation, because that'll help me to understand what we already looked at in the first one, which is the level of liver stress, which is the cause for the stagnated lymphatics. But more structurally, what's going on in the body.
Mm-hmm.
But between the two, it helps me to understand the levels of cause for why that person is going to develop a problem in the future, and where their greatest weaknesses or problems are that they need to work on now. And it's not like, oh my gosh, you have this diagnosable problem here, you need to go for this treatment. It's no, there's sluggishness in this system. You need to, in fact, the main sluggishness that I found, and this goes back to, I have to tell you a quick story about where I discovered this one. Through these 40,000 or so health screens, I would observe a certain pattern for a certain amount of time, and then all of a sudden I'd run into somebody that would exemplify that pattern, and then I would ask them certain questions to gain clarity. And I had been watching this pattern of heavy sewage-looking material in the blood for quite a long time. And this one woman came to me, and I said, oh my gosh, do you have foggy thoughts and low energy and this, that, and the other? And she said, oh yeah, all of that. And in fact, I'm so foggy, if I didn't have 10 kids, I wouldn't know what my name was. And I said, well, when I got finished with the health screen, I said, would you mind if I worked on your lower back for a few minutes? She says, oh, I'd love that. She said, my lower back hurts so bad. And so, because I was correlating what I saw in the blood with the lower back. the tightness of the lower back. So I had her lie on the carpeted floor there, and I took the heel of my hand and I worked on her lumbar area, and I opened that up for about 5 minutes. And she got up and sat in the chair beside me, and we talked for about 30 seconds, and she got kind of a strained look on her face, and she stood up and she says, "Oh, excuse me, I got to go to the bathroom." She went to the bathroom. She came back about 5 minutes later with this shocked look like she had just seen a ghost. And she says, "I've never seen a bowel movement like that before. I filled the whole toilet bowl."
Good for her.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
And that confirmed what I had been seeing for so long, because she had an extreme pattern. And so when I opened up that nerve flow from her lower back to her colon, it relaxed the colon to where it just unloaded volumes of waste.
Wow.
She was recycling constantly. And since then, I discovered shortly after that was the whole foundation for the chronic fatigue syndrome.
Wow.
And which develops into fibromyalgia and other problems.
Mm-hmm.
All of it could be avoided with the understanding of the fact that it begins in the lower back, and probably fears being held abdominally as a child.
I think there was a story you told us regarding a woman feeling fear when you were reading her blood. And
That was kind of funny. That was when I discovered that we are emotionally connected to our blood, even if our blood were 10,000 miles away.
So cool.
I was in Desert Hot Springs reading this one woman's blood, and it was within probably the first 6 months after I'd been trained with this work. And I was going to show her this piece of metal in her blood, and I put my finger up there, and she put her face close to the monitor, and her blood just shifted just radically, like it was going to run right off the edge of the screen. And I thought, oh my gosh, what did I do? And I pounding the table and shaking everything. I was trying to figure out what I did to cause that. And I couldn't figure it out because I couldn't make that same movement. And so we were talking about other things, and I was writing a report and everything. And after about 10 minutes, I saw something else I wanted to point out to her. And so I pointed with my finger again. And this time she put her face close to the monitor, and I saw the muscles at the side of her eyes tighten down, and her blood shifted like that again. I thought, oh no, the woman's a witch.
Blood magic.
But I've seen it so many times since then, right afterward, that I realized that it's the person feeling fear and their emotions projected over to the microscope, the blood on the microscope, and it caused it to move radically.
I experienced that when you read my blood. Remember, I started crying, and then it started kind of shaking on the screen.
Well, actually, the guy that created the polygraph machine, he wrote a book, The Secret Life of Plants. And what he would do is he'd put a little clip on a leaf of a plant, and he would monitor the emotions of the plant. And he really got some good writing material when he was babysitting a plant for a friend of his, a woman that had to travel to New York. And, just out of curiosity, he was watching that needle of the emotions of the plant, and all of a sudden the needle just went crazy, and he thought, I wonder if that has anything to do with her. So out of curiosity, he tried phoning her. He couldn't get a hold of her. This was before cell phones. It's way back. And so anyway, the next time he got a chance to talk to her, he says, do you remember what happened at approximately, he gave her the time. He says, oh my gosh, yeah, I stepped out into the street and I almost got run over. That plant, because of her relationship with the plant was monitoring her from thousands of miles away. And he proved that again and again and again after he discovered that.
Oh my God.
That when you talk to a plant and you develop a relationship with the plant monitors you emotionally.
Wait, that's so pure. Wow. I know.
He did, I'll just tell another quick story of one of his experiments. He had a little note to 5 different people. And in one of them, the note says, the plant on the right, there were 2 plants in this room, and nobody else saw who did what. But when you go in, take your hands and shred that plant, tear it up. And nobody else knew who destroyed the plant. And he put the meter on the leaf of the other plant and had each person walk in one at a time. And the needle just floated until the guy that tore the other plant up. And then the plant just went crazy, like, oh my gosh, no.
Oh.
For fear.
I'm never going to see a salad the same way.
So plants are very aware, and they need love and care, and they do listen to you when you talk to them.
I talk to mine a lot. Yeah. I got no one else to talk to, so it's just me and my plants. Do you think people are this way? Because we have moments all the time where she'll be like, I can feel you're anxious, and I'm in Europe or something.
Yeah. She literally will text me randomly.
There's no distance with emotion. We're connected. That's the oneness that connects us with everything. And it's ever present. And so, yes, you could be 1,000,000 miles away and you'd be directly connected.
Wow.
Instantly.
Here's a controversial question. What's your opinion about antidepressants? I feel like that will sometimes disconnect us from our emotions.
I believe that they should be outlawed, like mammograms and a lot of other things. Mm-hmm. That's the reason why so many people that take them commit suicide.
Yeah.
They don't help, they intensify it. What would be better is for a person to come to an understanding of what's really causing anxiety or depression, because our thoughts collectively control our emotions. And a person who is depressed, if their brain was hooked up to a computer, they could get a readout of all the thoughts that caused this chronic emotional state. And a lot of it can be inspired by traumatic memory. Not blaming the person for chronic stinking thinking, because it could be inspired by what they genetically inherited, but we should be focused on mastering those patterns, not wallowing in them.
Yeah.
So there's never a reason for a person to develop depression. It's a choice. Wow. Not a good one, but it's a choice. So if you have a condition of depression, what you need to do is become a thought policeman and monitor your thoughts and make sure that they're going in the direction that you want to go, because wherever your thoughts go, your emotions follow, and your whole life goes in that direction. So we are moment by moment creators of our entire lives. Wow. One thought at a time.
Oh God, what am I thinking right now? Okay. Well, with that being said, I didn't bring this up in the beginning of the episode because we were going to get to it. But in this we're actually going to do a 2-part segment where he actually reads me and Allie's blood live for the podcast. We've followed some of his protocols already, so we're very curious to see if it's helped, if we need to do more work. And it's really cool. You guys are going to, that's why there's this random TV.
In case you were wondering.
That's why it's there.
And microslides sitting around.
Exactly. And so in this next segment, you guys are going to actually get to see the blood on the screen and what he does. And lastly, I just want to briefly bring up one of the major reasons, and actually Ken just said this before we started filming, it is, or not one of the major reasons, but one of the issues with regular blood tests is it doesn't survive the travel to the lab, correct? Because live, how long? And let you explain that.
Yeah, this has to be taken immediately and read because it's a visual. You're not evaluating chemistry for monitoring a symptom of disease.
This is in real time. So if there's any crazy movements, that's probably my anxiety. I'm just kidding. Allie's like, great. Way to be on the spotlight, quite literally. But yeah, guys, see us for this next segment.